Jó napot kívánok! Ez a .eu, a Pannon Televízió hetente jelentkező magazinműsora az Európai Uniós hétköznapokról. A mai adásban szó lesz a drónokról, vagyis a távirányítással működő repülőrendszerekről, amelyek videófelvételek készítésére is alkalmasak. Szólunk továbbá az uniós egészségügyi ellátásról és a terrorizmus elleni harcról is. A műsor végén pedig megmutatjuk, hogy milyen egy igazán zöld, vagyis környezetbarát város. Tartsanak velünk! A drónok távirányítással működő repülőrendszerek, gyakorlatilag pilóta nélküli repülőgépek. Régen a drónokat főleg a hadászatban és a felderítésben használták, mára azonban széles körben elterjedtek. Ezeket a készülékeket használja például a filmezés, a tévézés és a mezőgazdaság is. Itt volt az ideje, hogy az Európai Unióban megszülessen a drónokra vonatkozó jogszabály. Most a folyamatot vezető EP képviselő válaszol a felmerülő kérdésekre.
One of the first jobs MEPs face after the summer break is civilian drones. They're becoming increasingly popular, increasingly cheap, accessible and useful, and for some increasingly a noise nuisance and invader of privacy. MEPs on the Transport Committee are due to vote on drones in September, when the preparation of legislation on key safety, security and privacy issues are finalised. Jacqueline Foster is leading the process. Jacqueline Foster, many thanks indeed for joining us. We're talking today about the report that you are leading in the Parliament on the safe use of remotely piloted aircraft systems, in common parlance, drones, like that one there. Here we go, a demonstration. I'm sure you've seen this many times before. What is behind the definition of the future of drone technology as a transformative technology?
Is we have to look at where we've come from. And if we look at over 100 years ago with Berlioz or with the Wright brothers, you know, that was the start of the civil aviation industry, basically. What we have seen over the last 15 years in terms of from a commercial point of view is a huge growth in this industry. We're looking at drones being used, civil drones being used to check crops in fields, vast fields of crops. We're looking at them to look at humanitarian disasters. There may be forest fires. They check railway lines. So there are huge, the film industry. The growth really over the last 10 to 15 years has now actually become absolutely huge. We need to now take a look at how we can manage this in a most sensible non-prescriptive way.
Okay, that leads us very neatly into our first question, and let me put this one to you here.
My proposal to you, Jacqueline, is to get a unified EU drone license, which enables drone pilots all over the EU to fly in all of Europe, as long as they stick to the rules set by JARUS and the EASA. Right now, there's different rules for every country, and you have to apply for every country you go to for different locations. So my question is, when will we see a unified drone EU license for all the drone pilots in the EU?
Clearly, there are different types of drones, but as a general rule, if you are operating a drone and you're a farmer in a field, and you are operating a drone in a football stadium, I think there's two very different requirements, because there'll be no people in the field. So if your little drone happens to hit a little bale of wheat, it's probably not going to cause a problem. But the same size one in a football stadium could cause damage. So therefore, we want to make sure there's appropriate flying schools where people can be licensed properly. And we also want to make sure that whenever they're used, that the appropriate level of training is in for the operator.
You mentioned safety issue. Here's a question from somebody representing pilots on that very thing.
Okay, we understand the importance of drones and the benefits they bring to society, but safety must always come first. We're very impressed by the way in which many in the industry have introduced geofencing in order to reduce the threat to passenger airliners. However, we're still concerned about the threat to helicopters, and especially air ambulance helicopters who operate in remote areas where geofencing does not exist. What can you do to reduce that threat?
I'm writing a framework of ideas of how we think this can be progressed, and then the regulators will have a look at it. There will be geofencing, for example. This is where certain technology can be blocked out around airports and obvious, probably power stations, there will be all sorts of things like that that is available. And I think it's then having a look at how we then deal with some of the issues where perhaps geofencing is not appropriate.
I guess if drone technology takes off in the next 15 years in the way it has done in the past 15 years, that you could easily imagine a scenario where there's thousands, literally, of drones, perhaps this size, perhaps even bigger than this, scooting around, which are outside of the geofencing capabilities. What is your solution for that?
Well, there is already that possibility.
Yeah.
And we deal with it.
Should it be regulated and controlled?
Well, it already is. If you're looking at particularly the small ones coming under about 400 or 500 feet, if you look at, for example, the Civil Aviation Authority, there is already criterion in orders, aircraft orders, that is laid down, and the rules are quite precise. And many other member states, well, certainly when you're looking at those that fly up to 400 or 500 feet, they've already got like a regulation in place there to say this is how this should be dealt with. I am confident that we'll now find a way to how we move forward with the increase actually in the usage.
Okay, we've time for one more question, and let's go to this one in German.
Drohnen bedeuten eine völlig neue Herausforderung für vorhandene Sicherheitssysteme. Drohnen fliegen zum Beispiel einfach über Zäune hinweg und transportieren dabei Waffen, Drogen oder andere Schadstoffe. Welche Reaktionen wir machen können, hängt vor allen Dingen von den rechtlichen Rahmenbedingungen ab, die bisher noch nicht definiert sind. Müssen wir passiv reagieren, also wie gesagt nur die Sicht versperren, oder dürfen wir auch diese Drohne stören und sie gegebenenfalls zum Absturz bringen?
If somebody was in their garden and they're there having sunbathing and having a picnic one day and a drone comes over, that has no right to come over. Nobody has a right to invade somebody's privacy. And that's quite clear. And we have national legislation already in place, as well as EU-wide legislation in terms of protection and in terms of privacy rules. So I don't see the need to have additional rules. What we need to make sure is that it is properly enforced, and all the member states have laws in place that can enforce this. So I hope nobody's thinking about doing anything ridiculous. But if certainly somebody finds they are in a position, any person, where there is some nuisance factor here, then they pick up the telephone and they phone their police officer.
Okay, Jacqueline Foster, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Az Európai Unióban gyakran megtörténik az, hogy valaki nem a saját országában, hanem egy másik tagállamban szorul egészségügyi ellátásra. Az egészségbiztosító ilyenkor, legalábbis a legtöbb esetben fizet. Most megmutatjuk azt, hogy mikor jár költségtérítés a betegeknek, és mikor nem.
Let's imagine you're on the ski slopes in another European Union country. An accident can easily happen. You need an operation immediately and, of course, on the spot. But there's no need to panic. When you return home, you'll be reimbursed by the country in which you're affiliated to the social security system, but only up to the cost of the same treatment in that country. Another example. You live in a border area and the nearest hospital is in the country next door. There's no question of wasting time by going to the hospital in your own country. On your return, you will also be reimbursed by your social security. Cheaper dental treatment in another country. Is that medical tourism? Maybe, but the free circulation of services and of people across the Union allows it. Since 2011, the European Directive on Cross-Border Healthcare encourages this mobility and free choice for patients. Each country has a national contact point. Patients can obtain clear information there about treatment options and also about the level of reimbursement in the case of healthcare received in another EU country. In certain cases, however, prior authorization from the country of affiliation is obligatory. For example, if the period in hospital includes at least one night, or in the case of costly specialized procedures or those considered as serious using specialist equipment. There may be a refusal if the country of origin has reason to doubt the quality of the treatment being offered by the service provider, or if the same treatment is available in the country within a reasonable period. But that notion hasn't been clearly defined by member states. Finally, the directive completely excludes long-term care, no personal care services, organ transplants, and public vaccination programmes against infectious diseases. This said, currently only 1% of European citizens have recourse to cross-border healthcare.
Az Európai Unióban egyre nagyobb a terrorveszély, ezért hatásos védelemre van szükség. A PNR egy utas nyilvántartási adatbázis, amelynek az a célja, hogy kiszűrje a gyanús személyeket. A PNR elfogadásának folyamata most egy újabb lépcsőfokot ért el. Hogy pontosan mit is jelent ez az adatbázis és hogyan fog működni a gyakorlatban, most egy EP képviselő magyarázza el.
PNR, Passenger Name Record, has been one of the most contentious files to travel through Parliament lately. The idea is for mass storage of passenger air travel information to help security services and police track terrorists and criminals. After years of delay, due mostly to privacy fears, MEPs on the Civil Liberties Committee have voted the measures through. The file was led by Timothy Kirkhope.
Timothy Kirkhope, many thanks indeed for joining us. Perhaps you could just explain what today's Libe Committee voted on.
Well, I think first of all they have voted convincingly right down a list of options that were available to them on the compromises which I brought them all together to give me. You could see the size of the voting list potentially was sort of nearly 800 amendments. But in fact, we managed to get that down to a small number of compromises. And that was as a result of an enormous amount of work which has been going on, and you rightly said 3.5 years, but it feels like perhaps a century as far as I can feel.
One of the key problems that MEPs, I think, on the left found particularly was this question of data protection. How did you get around that?
I think, like all these things, you've got to have a balance. We do have considerable threats, and they're not just terrorist threats in Europe, they're also threats of criminality, major criminals operating, trafficking in people, drug running, things like that, which are going on, people coming into Europe and travelling in Europe, who actually are people we need to be able to share some information which allows the police and the intelligence services to actually detain these people and to prevent danger to the citizens. In the Belgian authorities, you can ask them and they will make it clear that a very large proportion of those involved in drug running, drug offences, have been detained as a result of information which has been obtained in this way.
Is the threat that Europeans face now, let's say compared to 3.5 years ago, with jihadists arriving in Europe or indeed leaving Europe, greater now than it was 3.5 years ago?
I think the threat continues to increase all the time, but it's not just in one category or another. I think there is a much greater threat from major criminals, there is a much greater threat from terrorism, and frankly I think that we do need to do something to protect ourselves more than we've had up to now.
What do you say to those people who at one point or another have opposed this legislation on the grounds of too much privacy invasion, that in fact the real job is to get police forces and security forces to exchange known information rather than to launch a mass data collection service?
I think they're wrong about that. I mean, obviously we want to make sure, in fact, that the information is transferred, but we also want to make sure that there is protection in the use of that information and that it is not allowed to be just in the hands of anybody. I mean, basically, we've got a lot of precautions, a lot of safeguards in place.
If the process of negotiation with member states and the European Commission that you're now embarking on is successful, when might Europeans expect PNR to be in place?
We would like to get through the administrative and legislative process by the end of the year if we can. And in terms of the practical deployment of PNR systems, that will obviously be a matter for member states and how they actually get it together and how they combine together, because there will be a lot of combination work going on, I think.
Timothy Kirkhope, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
A Az Európai Unióban a jövőben szeretnék nagy mértékben csökkenteni az energiafelhasználást, illetve a károsanyag kibocsátást. Ennek érdekében azonban az otthonoknak és a városoknak is meg kell változniuk. London egy külvárosában már próbálkoznak a zöld otthonok megteremtésével. Most megmutatjuk, hogy mire jutottak.
Depuis 2002, le quartier de Beddington, dans la banlieue sud de Londres, est un modèle de développement durable appliqué à l'habitat. Au cœur du quartier se trouve le complexe de BZ. Son atout, ne pas utiliser plus d'énergie qu'il n'en produit. Ce complexe ultra écologique est composé de 82 logements, sur les toits des cheminées colorées, qui sont des systèmes d'aération. Les 250 habitants de BZ ont adopté un mode de vie plus écologique.
We reduced down the energy needed to run the home, so we have insulation, we have low energy appliances, low energy light bulbs, and so the homes need no central heating. You don't have to be an environmentalist to live at BZ. The idea is to make sustainable living easy for everybody, and if it's laid on, then people will participate.
À BZ, tout a été conçu pour atteindre cet objectif. Les logements ont été construits avec des matériaux recyclés ou renouvelables produits dans un rayon de 50 km. Les toitures dites végétalisées aident à préserver la biodiversité et à récupérer l'eau de pluie. Chaque résident possède un jardin et il existe même un potager collectif. Des panneaux solaires ont été installés sur les toits et les fenêtres. Résultat, des factures d'énergie réduites de 85% à la moyenne britannique. Helen Wolston est chargée de l'environnement dans une entreprise qui gère les transports de Londres. Pour elle, déménager à BZ était une opportunité. Elle réalise d'importantes économies. En voici les raisons.
The first and most important thing is that there are really thick walls made of concrete, which just keeps the heat in the building. So any heat from cooking or generally living here stays within the building really easily. We also get a lot of heat from the sun because we're all facing south. We have glass windows and that comes in and tops it up. Very, very rarely need to try and keep the place cool.
Mais BZ n'a pas livré toutes ses promesses. À sa création, des espaces de travail avaient été inclus dans la face nord des bâtiments, moins chauffés par le soleil.
People don't have to travel far between where they live and where they work. Suburbs are a 20th century invention. They are unsustainable without petrol to drive people around them.
Mais le succès n'a pas été au rendez-vous. Une partie des bureaux a été reconvertie en logement. Mais BZ continue d'attirer de nombreux curieux. Depuis son ouverture, l'endroit a accueilli plus de 30 000 visiteurs, souvent des architectes et des décideurs publics, ce qui témoigne du caractère novateur de cet écoquartier.
C'est très bien, ça évolue bien. J'avais peur que ça vieillisse mal, mais je trouve que ça vieillit bien. Ça manque un petit peu de végétation sur les terrasses, sur les jardins. Vous voyez, c'est minimum. C'est bien que c'est l'hiver, mais il pourrait y avoir plus de végétation luxuriante, champêtre, un peu plus de végétation simplement.
I was very impressed. I would like to see a few more trees though.
10 ans après sa construction, le modèle BZ a fait des émules. La Suède ou encore les Pays-Bas ont construit eux aussi des écoquartiers. Quant au Portugal et à l'Espagne, ils planchent sur la question.
High carbon growth is not a serious growth option. Low carbon growth, on the other hand, brings innovation, it brings creativity, it brings investment opportunities, it brings employment opportunities. So I think that actually the low carbon growth story is the only viable growth story. There isn't really any serious alternative over the medium term.
Pour lutter contre le réchauffement planétaire, les émissions de CO2 doivent être réduites au niveau mondial. Les derniers indicateurs ne sont pas encourageants. Les gaz à effet de serre dans l'atmosphère ont augmenté de 6% en 2010.
A .eu-t a Pannon Televízió Európai Uniós magazinműsorát látták. Egy hét múlva is várom Önöket. Viszontlátásra!